right, Judges 15, let's call this one In His Eyes and subtitle it Nothing Wrong, because I was standing in line at a restaurant today and behind me two ladies came in. One was trying to encourage the other about something that had gone on at work, and one of the things that she said is, "You did nothing wrong," in that way that in many ways unfortunately has become cliche and almost assuredly lets you know that in spite of the encouragement, the other person probably did something wrong. Understanding that there are times when a person actually did nothing wrong, but we're living in a time where it has become the go-to phrase, and I am afraid that it has been used far beyond its actual truth and relevance. But in Samson's circumstance, it is going to be his go-to excuse when his wife is given to another man after he essentially abandons her and doesn't really say a whole lot to her family. And this is a situation where Samson, in dealing with the Philistines, is basically God's chosen judge. God doesn't have to do a whole lot to incite to conflict with the Philistines, because there is a saying in matchmaking, especially in boxing and the martial arts, where it basically says some fights simply sell themselves, meaning you don't have to do a lot of promotion between two people who have the wrong temperament to be around each other. And in a lot of ways, it seems that's exactly what God has in Samson with his temperament around the Philistines with theirs. And so what happens is, in retaliation for Samson's father-in-law giving his wife to another man, Samson's going to retaliate by tying some foxes together by their tails with torches tied in between the tails as well. He's going to set them loose in their standing grain, and he's essentially going to burn their fields. It's going to set off a cycle of retaliation where the Philistines, they're going to take Samson's use of fire in a very drastic direction, because they are simply going to burn his wife and father-in-law, and that is going to set Samson off. In retaliation, he is going to kill more Philistines, and it's all going to culminate in the famous story of Samson slaying the 1,000 with the jawbone of a donkey. It's a great victory, but it's a great victory that comes at the expense of Samson losing his family. And so we're going to see, as we carry over into the next chapter, how much of the remainder of Samson's life is going to be spent in a kind of sad attempt to recover what he lost in even an imperfect marriage, because he's never going to get that back. He's never going to be married again, even though he is going to find the company of a prostitute and ultimately Delilah, and that's going to be his downfall. And so when we look at the story of Samson, once again, this is a cautionary tale in the ways in which doing what is right in our own eyes can cause us to lose track of simply doing what is right. And as we saw in the last chapter, Samson put unnecessary pressure on his wife. This time, Samson simply lost her altogether, failing to account for the degree to which his retaliation against the Philistines, and them both using this interesting phrase, "I simply did to them what they did to me," and the Philistines responding in kind, "We only did to him what he did to us," when it's true in neither circumstance. And so much like the exaggeration that goes, "You did nothing wrong," or "I did nothing wrong," they're going to describe themselves as doing only what was done to them, when Samson, in retaliation for losing his wife, is going to burn down the property of an entire group of people. And those people, in exchange for losing their property, they're going to commit murder. And it's going to go on from there, because no one's willing to admit that they did anything wrong. And they're going to exaggerate what they've done in retaliation as simply being the same thing that was done to them when it wasn't. And so, as we often say, God's best to you as you go forward in him. God will, in this time, avoiding the temptation to exaggerate in times when we're tempted to do what is right in our own eyes at the expense of simply seeing what's just right.